Hello, and welcome to Conspiracy Classroom. Today's lesson spans centuries. Legends and myths from antiquity, stories from our Bible, and the manipulated history of mankind, all speeding through time on a collision course with the 20th century. Now we're here to pick up the muddled pieces, disseminate fact from fiction, and shine a light on what is an ongoing conspiracy. So join me inside. Class is in session. First, to properly set up our story, we're going to have to briefly explore the history and many claims of finding evidence of giants. The idea of giant beings first appears amongst the earliest written and oral traditions of all of humanity. All across the globe they are mentioned, carved into stone. In the ancient Near East, Mesopotamian epics describe heroic figures of extraordinary size and strength. The oldest Greek myths of Titans speak of large primordial beings born from the earth itself. Across cultures, giants represent a former, much older age of the world. This earlier, chaotic era is before our known history, informs some of humanity's earliest memories when man walked amongst gods. Some of the most famous early references appear in the Bible. The Nephilim, the children of an unholy union of sons of God and the daughters of men, described as a mighty race possessing immense physical size and strength, but also violent tendencies and an insatiable appetite, filling the earth with violence. The flood, mentioned in Genesis and in every culture around the world, was to rid earth of widespread wickedness and debauchery brought on by their presence amongst humanity. After the flood, giants appear sporadically in biblical history, the most famous account being the story of David and Goliath. A Philistine warrior from Gath is described as extraordinarily tall, clad in massive bronze armor, but a young Israeli shepherd, David, defeats Goliath with a sling and a single stone. In Mesopotamia, the hero Gilgamesh is described as 2/3 divine and 1/3 human, possessing immense stature and strength. His exaggerated proportions and semi-divine nature place him within the broader ancient pattern of larger-than-life beings who straddle the boundary between gods and men. Ancient Hindu texts are not without their tales as well. The powerful, giant-like beings, Daitya and Rakshasas, possessed great size and supernatural strength. Native American tribes tell of ancient, red-haired, cannibalistic giants who once inhabited caves across the southwest and is responsible for giant earthworks in the east. Stories passed down warning of giants in remote regions, in caves, mountains, and in dense forests, all on the edge of civilization. Right up until the Middle Ages, European chronicles depicted remnants of a previous race of extraordinary humans. Medieval writers, such as Geoffrey of Monmouth, recorded tales of giants occupying the land prior to human settlement, extending the memory of this former age. It wasn't just medieval tales of faraway lands, though. Right here in America, the Paiute Indians passed down a dense oral history, one that mentions a hostile race of red-haired giants named the Setika, a vicious lot known for their thirst for battle and for blood. It was well known and a common attribute given to the giants through the ages that they practiced cannibalism. Their appetite for human meat haunted the Plains Indians, who were violently preyed upon. Any unlucky tribesmen found victim of these beings were hauled off to local cave systems and never seen again. The most famous of which is named Lovelock Cave in Nevada. The irony. This is where legend says neighboring allied tribes united and drove these beasts back to their mountainous caves and trapped the last of the giants inside, setting fire to the entrance and any escape tunnels. The united tribes suffocated them, ending their threat for good. Later, in the early 20th century, archaeological excavations at Lovelock Cave uncovered ancient remains and large woven sandals of uncanny size, fueling the myth of a race of giants. That discovery was just the beginning, though. In 1956, President Eisenhower passed the Federal Highways Act. This one act launched the modern interstate highway system, thus triggering massive excavation projects across the United States, from rural and previously undeveloped regions to suburban areas and through dense cities founded at our nation's birth, with thousands of miles of highways being cut through the heartland of America, suddenly digging into ancient burial mounds, long-lost habitation areas, and untouched landscapes became not so uncommon. Stories of oversized skeletons being found started to circulate. In a time when archaeology wasn't as rigorous and widespread, theft of ancient sites happened regularly. Plus, a broader cultural narrative gained momentum that hidden artifacts and knowledge of a different past were being uncovered but was suppressed and kept hidden from the masses. As more oversized bones or out-of-place artifacts were being discovered, local farmers, construction crews, amateur excavators often thought the discovery might bring fame, recognition, or some financial reward. So more times than not, established universities or museums were contacted with their find, the most common culprit being the Smithsonian Institution. A representative would arrive, then take possession of the remains with the promise of future communication. But every time, the individuals involved were never contacted, nor would the public ever hear about any of these incredible history-altering discoveries. When contacted, silence, denial, or official statements dismissing the claims always followed. This pattern hardened into a broader suppression of knowledge and a warping of history. It's here I want to start our story. I'll make a more in-depth Giants video, but I wanted to add context that this narrative of the Smithsonian covering things up isn't a one-off, but the norm. Anyways, it's April 1909, and the Arizona Gazette has just printed a front-page article that will ripple through Arizona and beyond. The headline promises an extraordinary, history-altering discovery deep within the Grand Canyon. The story recounts the journey of adventurer, maritime engineer, riverboat captain, and treasure hunter G.E. Kincaid, a tough, weathered sailor who had spent years navigating unforgiving waters and who now found himself drawn into the vast stone labyrinth carved by the Colorado River. For days, he had drifted and rowed along the winding current, negotiating rapids that thundered between black rock walls, polished by ages of floodwater. The canyon rose around him in colossal tiers, crimson sandstone giving way to pale limestone, then plunging into shadowed inner gorges of near vertical stone. From the river, the walls felt impossibly high, like cathedral facades, built not by hands, but by time itself. It was during one of these quiet stretches, the river temporarily calm beneath a pale desert sky, that Kincaid claimed he noticed something unnaturally high along the sheer cliff face, what appeared to be a geometric shadow, a dark line to straight, to be way too random than the common erosion at this cave entrance. Curiosity overcame caution. After securing his boat along the banks, he climbed, scrambling up loose rock and gripping the ancient site, inching toward the anomaly. As he gained elevation, the shape resolved into what he described as a carved entrance, partially concealed by centuries of dust and wind. The opening, according to the Gazette, led into a tunnel that descended gradually into the canyon walls. The air inside was cool and still, the light fading quickly into darkness. What he reportedly found beyond that entrance is what transformed into the story? No, into a legend. The article described a vast interior complex, not just a simple cave, but a network of corridors and chambers arranged with deliberate symmetry. Passageways were said to run straight and level, intersecting at right angles. The walls appeared smooth and shaped, not rough and irregular. Deeper inside, Kincaid allegedly entered a central chamber large enough to gather hundreds of people. Stone pillars supported the ceiling, and niches were carved evenly into the walls. In adjoining rooms, he claimed to have seen mummified bodies laid on stone shelves, wrapped in a bark-like textile, preserved in the dry air. Some were described as seated upright against the walls. Others lay extended, hands crossed. Near them were copper implements, blades, spearheads, shields, and tools hardened to a degree unusual for primitive metallurgy. Storage rooms allegedly held sealed vessels containing grain. Ventilation shafts were said to extend upwards, suggesting an engineering knowledge of airflow and structural planning. One chamber, the Gazette recounted, contained a statue carved from stone, seated cross-legged, bearing features that the article compared to both Egyptian iconography and Eastern Buddhist sculptures. These unknown hieroglyphic-like inscriptions were reportedly carved into tablets in the canyon walls themselves, the symbols unfamiliar to any known southwestern peoples or traditions. The scale of the complex was emphasized repeatedly, large enough, the article suggested, to have housed thousands of people in organized fashion. Kincaid, as the story goes, recognized the magnitude of what he believed he had stumbled upon. According to the article, he contacted the Smithsonian Institution, and arrangements were allegedly made for experts to examine the site. The implication was clear. If authentic, this cavern complex could rewrite accepted history, pointing to a previously unknown civilization embedded within the stone heart of the Grand Canyon. Then, as the legend tells it, and as common practice which we now know, complete silence. No widely published follow-up, no displayed artifacts, no public excavation reports. The canyon remained immense, layered, impenetrable, its cliffs still rising above the Colorado's dark green ribbon. The article became a fragment of frontier lore, its claims echoing through decades of speculation, mingling with stories of lost civilization, hidden chambers, and discoveries swallowed by stone, time, and the elite. The Smithsonian has constantly denied that such a cave excavation ever took place, and no verified documentation has surfaced confirming Kincaid's claims. Yet, the absence of records has fueled rather than diminished the story. Speculation about who could have reached the Grand Canyon before Columbus varies widely. Some propose Phoenician traders, citing their advanced seafaring ability, and alleged Old World inscriptions and incredibly detailed maps. Others suggest Egyptian explorers, linking the Gazette's mention of hieroglyphic-like writing to the Nile civilization. There are theories involving ancient Hebrews, sometimes connected to the lost tribes of Israel. Norse explorers are occasionally mentioned, given their confirmed presence in North America around 1000 AD. More speculative models reach further back, proposing Ice Age maritime cultures or Atlantean survivors, also a transatlantic civilization predating known history has been proposed. In each case, the Grand Canyon becomes a dramatic inland terminus of much older coastal arrival, preserved in myth but erased from official chronology. Adding to the mystique is the fact that large portions of the Grand Canyon are restricted to public access. No reason or explanation given. Certain side canyons and cliff regions are also closed regularly. But seekers of truth, and those inspired by the story of Kincaid's discovery, tempt fate every day, searching for this long-lost cave entrance leading to lost civilization. Stories circulate that hikers who attempt to approach these off-limits areas risk being detained, questioned, or have their equipment confiscated. But before that, they are confronted by unmarked black SUVs, similar to what's seen at Area 51, or blacked-out helicopters cruising below the canyon walls at incredible speeds, give an intimidating presence. With drone technologies today, the government has an even tighter grip on these rumored sites. As with giant skeleton reports and lost civilization theories, the Kincaid story endures because it combines ancient mystery, institutional silence, remote geography, and excitement. The enduring suspicion that all records vanish deliberately from the public records is almost a given. But don't fret. Stay inspired and keep questioning. Transformative discoveries are happening every day. Thank you for listening. Good night.
You sure you want to bet that? I've got a pair of twos.